Bring in Latha as well. She joins us with more on this dividend question. Latha, at the end of the day, it might be an academic question, but let's address it nevertheless. What my sources tell me is that the government has moved the ordinance, in a sense, to legally fortify the 8th of November notification. Remember, this matter is already being heard in the Supreme Court of India. Now, the second aspect really has to do with the promissory nature or the promissory obligation of the Reserve Bank of India. Post this ordinance, when will that end? When will the Reserve Bank's liability stand extinguished is the question. Is it the 31st of March, which is what we are given to understand? Will it be only for certain classes or certain categories? That again is awaited in the fine print. So Latha, as we look at this, should we expect, or how is the street really expecting this fiscal windfall, if any at all, any longer?
Yes, in the first place, it's quite possible that the last date could get challenged. There could be genuine difficulties for people who are not able to make it in 90 days, who are staying abroad, and therefore the courts may well push that date beyond March 31. That's one part. But the point is the fiscal windfall. As you said, Shireen, if 14.5 lakh crore came back on, December 21st when you reported, it's quite possible that we are speaking about a few thousand crores by the time it is December 31. So this may entirely be an academic debate. But let's have that academic debate. The Reserve Bank has an asset side and a liability side in its balance sheet. Now, Salve's argument is that the liability side is crunched because some notes are not, the RBI does not have to keep its promise for some part of the notes. Let's assume 50,000 crore. So that can be written as a check to the government. What Ranina says is that this is balance sheet. Reserve Bank under RBI Act can only declare from the P&L, the profit and loss, not the accumulated assets or reserves in the balance sheet. So legally, the RBI Act will have to be amended if anything from the balance sheet has to be declared as profit. The second part is, how can you operationally do that? How does the Reserve Bank declare a dividend? Through the year, they have bought dollars at cheaper levels, sold it at higher prices. They've made a cash profit. As well, bonds. They have sold bonds at higher levels, bought them back at lower levels. They make a cash profit. It is that cash profit that they declare as dividend. If they have to pull out of their cupboard, they are pulling out bonds. So if from the balance sheet, the Reserve Bank has to pull out 50,000 crore of bonds and declare it as profit, then they have to sell those bonds. Then the government may as well sell, because if there is, it's the law of demand and supply. You supply more bonds to the market, the yields will go up, the prices will crash. Whether the government issues new bonds or the RBI sells the bonds, it's going to mean the same. Also, it will mean more cash floating in the system. It will have monetary policy implications. And I don't think the Reserve Bank will take that 50,000 crore very lightly. So even if you legally argue and change the act, it will have serious monetary policy implications. It will make no sense for the Reserve Bank to sell 1 lakh crore of bonds or 50,000 crore of bonds. And then a final academic question, let me leave you with. In India, the asset side of the RBI, how does it create its balance sheet? It has bought bonds over the last several years. It has 7 lakh crore of bonds, and it has $350 billion of foreign currency assets. You imagine a demonetization in Saudi Arabia. All the assets of the balance sheet are dollars. Suppose the Reserve Bank of Saudi Arabia cancels some notes and it has to return to its government. It has to sell dollars in the market. Now imagine how can you handle that? It will be a market problem. So I think this dividend issue is really not something that can be so simplistically answered. I don't think there's manna coming from heaven.
Okay, all right.